thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We like to start with a bit of an introduction. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, who you are, where you're from, that sort of thing. It helps individuals to connect with your journey.
Okay, my name's Joe Bruce. My husband jokingly refers to us as the Bruces, like as in Robert the Bruce. And I'm from Edinburgh in Scotland. I love it here. It's a beautiful city and I'm very lucky to live here. People come from all over the world. Actually, I didn't start off here. I came from a little town in Devon, and like a lot of people, I went to university, or what you'd call college. I fell in love with the city that I went to college in and stayed, and my whole life has been here since. And I've actually tried to move away, and I've worked in Luxembourg and I've worked in London, and always ended up coming back to Scotland is the home where the heart is, so to speak. Technically speaking, I'm from England, but my heart is here in Scotland and I'm from Edinburgh.
So we're here to talk about your journey with me. The full name is, you could probably say it a lot better than I could.
Myalgic Encephalomyelitis, ME, sometimes called chronic fatigue syndrome, but very controversially so, and none of the patients really like that name, so we stick with ME, and we accept that it's more widely accepted in medical circles to talk about it as ME/CFS, as in a combination of the two.
And so there was a time where you were unaware that you had me. What was that like?
I was a typical wild redhead in my 20s. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to explore. I loved going out dancing. I was very into my career, which is in finance is a very big thing here in Edinburgh. Not dissimilar to London. It's a big financial centre. Lots of opportunities to climb the ladder.
And so at some point you realized that from a health perspective, there were things that were not quite right. What were some of those early signs that you noted that sort of started you thinking that there might be something you needed to get checked?
It wasn't really me that noticed. It was my husband that noticed. And so I would get sick more than other people. I would, if there was a bug going around the office, I would catch it. If there was a cold, I would catch it, but I wouldn't just get the cold, it would turn into a chest infection. Or I wouldn't just feel sick, I would get a gum infection. Anything would turn into an infection. So it was, I think I ended up with chest infections and being on antibiotics a lot more than is normal. My husband never got sick, and he would observe me being almost constantly sick and working through it anyway, push,
Yeah.
And so over time, I would start to have to take time off work. So it would be like a week, and I would just be out for the count, sleeping. I assumed that it was because how I lived my life, kind of burning the candle at both ends. At first, I would be off, it would be like a week, and I would need to recuperate. And then I would go back to work, and for about 8 months. And then over the space of about 5 years, 6 years, it went from needing to be off for a week at a time to needing to be off for like 4 weeks at a time, or 6 weeks at a time. And slowly, the time that I needed to take off and how exhausted and just sick I was feeling. People misunderstand ME as just feeling tired all the time, but there's so many other symptoms. My stomach was constantly upset. I would faint. I would have these awful headaches. I would have nausea. I would have pain that migrated around my body. And over time, this just snowballed. I don't know at which point it went from me being healthy more than sick to sick more than healthy. But that certainly happened over a period of time. Yeah, well, they had given me a diagnosis of post-viral fatigue syndrome several years earlier, but what they hadn't explained about it was, or what they said was, go home, you'll be fine. kind of thing. You know, like with the flu or whatever, like ride it out, it will pass. There was no discussion that it could become a chronic illness, no discussion of what to look out for or for the signs of it becoming chronic. And I realized that actually then I had been suffering on and off for 10 years before getting my formal diagnosis of what they called at that time CFS. So CFS is a diagnosis of exclusion. And what that means is when they have done like a bajillion tests on you, run every blood work that they can think of, everything comes back normal. Everything keeps coming back normal. You're fine. So, but ME, apparently, it can be seen on MRI. You can see a SPECT scan. You can see inflammation in the brain. However, you cannot get a SPECT scan in the UK on the National Health Service. They don't believe in it. In fact, the care pathway that the doctors had to follow back then was once you give them the diagnosis of CFS, discourage any further testing because it plays into this. So all I was asking for was a treatment that was appropriate, you know, to my situation, as opposed to what I felt was happening, which was being fobbed off. And the reason why this is so important now is that this is happening to a lot of people with long COVID.
Absolutely.
You know, so long COVID is very similar to ME, and it's also being psychologized a lot, both in America and here in the UK. And we in the ME community, and actually all of our charities, organizations, we're all behind the long COVID community, like 100%, because their story is our story. It's just in a lot of cases we didn't know what our triggering virus was or triggering infection. You know, some people had infections after having a baby or sepsis and they got ME, or, you know, some people had Epstein-Barr, which I think you call mono in America. Or in Australia, you know, the yellow fever, and it always seems to come after a bout of some sort of infection. It can be bacterial, but a lot of people recognize that it's viral. I don't lack motivation, but what happens is the more I push, the sicker I get. And that's why it's so important to say to people with long COVID now that you mustn't push through. You must stop and rest and pace yourself. Don't push, because if you push, you will end up like me. I pushed for 13 years and ended up, you know, permanently disabled because of it. As the time went on, no matter how hard I tried, my ability to sustain whatever activity I was trying to do consistently grew shorter and shorter and shorter. So by this time, we're in like 2015, so over 2 years, my husband sat me down and he's like, you have to stop. You have to stop. You're going to kill yourself. You're going to end up in hospital, permanently bedbound. He said he is making enough money for us to live on. It was a big adjustment in terms of lifestyle, and I felt really bad because when he married me, this was not what he signed up to.
He sounds like a great guy.
He is phenomenal, and he hates me saying it, which makes him even greater.
I mean,
Plus,
a lot of your friends are probably still in that life. How was that, you know, experience? Are they understanding? Have they stayed with you?
They have not stayed with me, no. I don't have any. They are gone. They, over time, you know, you lose them over time. The last ones that I lost was really kind of at the beginning of the lockdown situation with the pandemic. Obviously, I'm very vulnerable to COVID, especially in the beginning. You know, Delta probably would have killed me. And they were out there campaigning for measures to be removed because they wanted to be able to go to the pub or get their nails done or send their kids to school. Many of the people who've become my friends in the chronic illness community, the people who I consider now my real friends, the people on Twitter and on Instagram and so forth. It was a real shock. I couldn't believe it, actually. I can't even find the words for that.
No. I mean, the thing that I reflect on is that unless individuals experience something themselves, it's really impossible for them to understand. And it's one of those really difficult things, even for people who care about you, right? For them to sort of put themselves forward in that way. So it's very difficult. And so it really does take others who have experienced illness like we have in order to find that community, if you will.
Yes, and they're the most loving, caring, gentle, funny people in the community.
And so, so first of all, Joe, it has been wonderful to learn about your story, hear about how you have made these very difficult transitions in life and how you've managed through,
Thank you.
whether it's learning to sort of ratchet back expectations, to be kind to yourself as you readjust those expectations, whether it's managing through the crash when it happens. What are the things that have helped power you through and continue to keep doing a lot of the wonderful things that you're doing for the ME community?
I'm going to be really soppy here and say it really is about love. So lucky to be loved as much as I am by my husband. I really, really love him, and he really lets me feel loved. The love of him and the love of my two fluffy boys are what keeps me going. Also, the sense of injustice keeps me going. I want us to be kind of the last generation that goes through this. ME runs in my family. And when my little sister got diagnosed, that was when I felt that, okay, it might be too late for me, but I don't want it to be too late for her. I'm going to keep doing whatever I can for as long as I can. And even if that's just being noisy and kind of annoying, just keep the noise going. If it helps one person more, if it helps one doctor to hear, or well, what I'm experiencing now actually is a lot of medical frontline people who have long COVID starting to recognize that they might be developing ME,
The opposite of noise is silence, and nothing happens if it's silent. So I
That's right.
appreciate it.
The bad messages fill the silence. So we need to make sure it's our messages and our stories that are filling the silence. And the one last thing I would say to everyone, make room to laugh every day. Even if it's at something stupid, even if it's at yourself, that keeps me going too. Love comedy. My husband makes me laugh every day. You have to laugh. So love and laughter, they're the biggest things in the world.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Take care of the two boys. I'm sure they're missing you right now because you haven't made them the center of the universe for the last hour or so.
Seeing as the interview's over, do you want to meet them? Because they're sleeping right now, but you can say hi. So I don't know what
Okay.
you
Sorry
can
about
see.
that. But yes, I am seeing you, and oh my, whoa!
Hey, baby. Hi,
He's
Basil
got
Bear.
his ears are bigger than mine. That's awesome.
Woohoo! He's a very cute boy. This is Basil, or
You are beautiful.
Basildon. And the other
Basil.
little guy, he's kind of sleeping up here on his hammock. His name's Bertie. Hey, Bertie. Hi,
Bertie.
Bubba.
Oh man. That looks so comfortable. I want one of those. I want one of those hammocks. I want to crawl into the hammock.
They are, and you see, they have like a townhouse mansion thing going on here,
That is
and
gotta be the
and
and a castle.
necklaces and castles. Yeah,
Oh
when I
my,
said they were the center of the universe, I really meant it. Like they're so spoiled, it's ridiculous.